Hi everyone, today we will continue our Indian Polity NCERT Class 6 series. Today we will study Unit 2 topic on government. You must have heard the word government many times. In this chapter you will learn about what a government is and the important role it plays in our lives. We will try to understand what do government do, how do they decide what to do, what is the difference between different types of government. So let's start this lecture. Have you ever thought that why do we need a government? Every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done, right? Because अगर कोई rules regulations नहीं होंगे तो कोई कुछ भी कर सकता है and there will not be any punishment discipline in our country. So these decisions can be regarding where to build roads, schools, electricity, etc. Then you must have heard there are several Pradhan Mantri Yojanas which are arranged by government. These are helpful for poor people in our country. These are social issues which government takes action on it. The government has the job of protecting the boundaries of the country and maintaining peaceful relations with other countries. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. For example, when there are natural disasters like tsunami or earthquake, it is the government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. You must have heard in news the Uttarakhand disaster, right? Uh, there was an official government authority to help the people. Just like that, court is also a part of government. Whenever there is a dispute or if someone has committed a crime, we goes to court for justice. So now to manage all the issues properly, there is a need to be some amount of organization so that decisions can be made. Then some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For example, there is a need to control resources and protect the territories of a country so people can feel secure. So government do all this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions and implementing these among all the people living in their territory. Now we move further to levels of government. Now you know that government is responsible for many different things. So to manage it efficiently, government works at different levels. That is, at the local level means in villages we call it local self-government. You can see in picture. Then at state level in towns, the state level would mean that which covers an entire state. For example, Assam, Haryana, Maharashtra, Delhi, etc. Okay, and at the national level or center which relates to entire country, that is India as a whole national country. Now in this chapter I have only introduced you the level at which government works. In the next lecture we will see the functions of each level. Now here we move towards to understand the link between the laws and the government. The government makes laws and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these laws, right? This is the only way government can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly it has the powers to enforce also its decisions. See, I give an example. See, if there is a law that says that all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license, right? Any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined. Without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of much use, right? This is a law made by government and we have to follow it because we live in a country. Now next is अब जैसे गवर्नमेंट को पावर है टू मेक एन लॉ एंड टू एग्जीक्यूट इट वैसे ही सिटीजन को भी राइट है मतलब क्या if a person feels that a particular law is not being followed then a citizen of India can take a step in addition to action taken by government. Means we'll take an example as if a person feels that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. Now, the court can then give an order about what should be done. This is what we have already learned in last slide, that Court is also a part of government. Now, our next topic is types of government. Do you know who gives the government this power to make decisions or enforce laws? The answer of this question depends on what type of government the country follows. That is monarchy or democracy. Now, what is democracy or monarchy? Now, in a democracy, it is the people who give the government the power. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. Once elected, these persons form the government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defend its decisions to the people. Now, another form of government is monarchy. That is monarch. The monarch is king or a queen. They have the power to make the decision and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision making power remains with the monarch only. Unlike in a democracy, and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. Now, India follows a democratic government. India is a democracy. This achievement is the result of a long struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. Now you know that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Now, democratic government is referred to as representative democracies. In representative democracies, people do not participate directly but instead they choose their representative through an election process. These representatives meet and make decisions for the entire population. This is what is representative democracy. Now, next important point of democratic government is universal adult franchise. Without this, government cannot be a democratic government. This means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. But it was not always like this. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections? In the earliest forms, government allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. This means that women, poor and propertyless and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by the rules and regulations that these few men made. In India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is what is universal adult franchise. These are the two important points of democratic government. Now we are going to start our next chapter on key elements on democratic government. In this chapter, you will read about some of the key elements that influence the working of a democratic government. These includes people participation, the resolution of conflict and equality and justice. Okay. Now we will try to understand this chapter by an example. See, South Africa is a country that has people of several races, right? There are black people who belong to South Africa, whites who came there to settle, and Indians who came as laborers and traders. Okay, now Maya Naidu, an 11-year-old girl, lives in South Africa. She found a newspaper article of a young schoolboy and asked her mother who this boy was. She was told that he was called Hector Peterson. He had been shot by the police. Maya was shocked and asked the reason behind this. Her mother told that there was a town in South Africa of blacks. Hector lived there and he and his classmates joined the protest against learning the African language in school. This was the language that the whites spoke. Hector and other school students were being forced to learn this language, but they wanted to learn their own language. The South African police beat up the protesters and shot at the crowd. One of their bullets killed Hector also. Her mother explained that South Africa was earlier governed by apartheid laws. Now, apartheid means what? It means separation on the basis of race. South African people were divided into white, black, Indian, and colored races. According to the law, these races were not allowed to mingle with each other, to live near each other, or even to use common facilities. She told Maya that in those days hospitals were separate and so were ambulances also. An ambulance meant for white people would always be well equipped, while one meant for black people was not. Then non-whites were not allowed to vote. Thus, blacks and colored people were not considered to be equal to whites. Now, the another example was the African National Congress, the group of people who led the struggle against apartheid, and their most well-known leader. You must be knowing Nelson Mandela fought the apartheid system for several years. Finally, they succeeded in 1994. South Africa and in 1994, South Africa became a democratic country in which people of all races were considered equal. Now, let us now try to understand what democratic government means to all of us. Okay. Do you know why do we have regular elections? We have already read in the previous chapter that people make the decisions in a democracy, right? Through voting in elections, people elect leaders to represent them. These representatives take decision on behalf of the people, right? We have already seen this in last lecture. Now, all governments are elected for fixed period. In India, this period is for 5 years. Once elected, governments can stay in power only for that 5 years only. Okay, if they want to continue to be in power, then they have to be re-elected by the people. This is a movement when people can sense their power in the democracy. In this way, the power of government gets limited by regular election, means ultimately the whole power goes into the hands of people, right? Now, there are other ways also to participate in the process of government. Okay, elections are usually held once in 5 years. Beside voting, there are other ways also to participate. People participate by taking an interest in the working of the government and by criticizing it when required. See, you must have remember in 2005, a particular government increased the electricity rate. So people had to pay an extra money for this, but people expressed their disapproval very strongly. They took out rallies and also organized a campaign. Government tried to explain and defend its decisions, but finally listened to the people's opinion only, and they withdraw the increase. The government had to change its decision because it is responsible to the people. See, there are many ways in which people express their views and make governments understand what actions they should take. The like rallies, dharnas, then strikes, etc. Things that are unfair and unjust are also brought forward, right? Then through newspaper, magazines, TV also play an important role in discussing government issue and responsibility, right? See, this is true that democracy allows people to participate. It is also true that not all sections of people are actually able to do so. Right? Another way for people to participate is by organizing themselves in social movement also that seeks to challenge the government and its functioning. Members of minority community, Dalit, Adivasi, women and other are often able to participate in this movement. See, now we can't keep continuing these conflicts, right? So we have to fix the conflicts. As you have seen in Maya's story, we have read about now conflicts can lead to violence because one group decides that it is all right to use force to prevent the other group from protesting. Right? Now, see, conflicts occur when people of different cultures, religions, region, or economic backgrounds do not get along with each other, or when some among them feel they are being discriminated against, right? People may use violent means to settle their differences. This leads to fear and tension among others living in an area. Government is responsible for helping to resolve the conflict, right? Now, the Indian constitution lays down the basic rules or laws that have to be followed by everyone. These laws are for both the government and to the people also. Now, there are other conflicts also in our society, and the role of government is to resolve them. The government plays a most important role to resolve the conflict. Religious procession and celebration can sometimes lead to conflict. Now, for example, is the route a procession takes may lead to a conflict. The government, particularly the police, plays an important role in getting representative of concerned communities to meet and try and arrive at a solution. At times, there is fear that violence may erupt, with people throwing stones or trying to disrupt the procession. Right, the police is responsible for what? For ensuring that violence does not take place. See, now here we can take an example of Kaveri water dispute. You must have seen in news also between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Conflict arises because both dams are on the same river only. Both the states can't get as much water as they need for people in their states. This leads to a conflict. The central government has to step in and see that a fair distribution uh, is worked out for both the states. Now, every citizen should get an equality and justice, and one of the key idea of democratic government. Equality and justice are inseparable. As I told you in my earlier video, the practice of untouchability is now banned. Government has now been recognized equality and justice and made an special provisions for groups which in society that are equal within society that are equal.